Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice break and got the chance to go outside and have a look at the sky and take your first image for the participatory photo project. Thank you very much to Tricia King for that great introduction of the project as well, which we're really excited to have as part of this day to really allow you to connect. I'm just making sure we're on the right screen, Elliot. Connect to these different places and spaces where we're all tuning in from across the planet. So we're in our featured artist session now, where we have two incredible artists who are going to share their work with us. And starting off with right now, we're going to be on a rainforest exploration of Jinnaburra country on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, with an immersive walk through the Mary Cairncross Scenic Reserve. This session is featuring Jason Murphy, an incredible Jinnaburra artist who grew up in West End in Brisbane and retains a really strong connection to his country, which goes as far as Mount Nebo and as far north as Mapleton, west to Kilcoy. So the piece that you're going to experience today is an original work created exclusively for us today. It's a collaborative piece. Jason also wanted us to acknowledge BJ Murphy, his nephew, and BJ's children, who play a really significant role in the work you're about to experience today. And it is also a great privilege for us that Jason through this work has shared a sound recording of his great grandfather singing traditional song Garrigina Name, which is recorded in 1957. So it's truly a privilege that Jason is sharing this original work for Field Trip, but also this recording with us today.
Jinnaburra, Gadi Gadi, Bugawa. On behalf of the Jinnaburra ancestors and descendants, we welcome you today to freshwater country.
Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful project with us, Jason. Jason Murphy, Jinnaburra artist who presented that Jinnaburra walk through country with us through Mary Cairncross. And everyone who's watching at home or from wherever you're streaming, you're obviously watching us on the Arts Front platform. I'm on the presenter Zoom here, and I wanted to share with you that was quite a beautiful experience, as I can see some of BJ's children who were involved in that piece, and Libby's children actually watching us with big smiles on their faces. So hello to those wonderful children out there who played a very important role in putting that project together, and I can see them waving to us now, and I'll share that wave with you that you can't see us on the Arts Front live stream. So thank you very much for sharing that beautiful piece, Jason. Such a powerful project, and wonderful to connect with Jinnaburra country and that incredible rainforest through Mary Cairncross as well. We're going to move on to our next artist now in this featured session, which is the incredible and unstoppable Sarah Jane Pell. Now, Sarah Jane is an artist, an explorer, performer, and science art producer. She is a co-leader and aquanaut of Tektite 2020, an all-woman subsea habitat mission designing experimental and emerging practices in sea and space domains to disrupt, embody, and record in situ human performance, environmental awareness, and expression to really bring new immersive experiences to audiences. Sarah Jane is an artist in residence at the Monash Immersive Visualization Platform and an associate professor at Monash Human-Centered Computing. She is chief investigator on an ARC discovery project for designing aquatic play. And her creative practice is really dependent on participating in high-risk operational fieldwork in extreme environments. She's been recognised as an Australian Council Fellow, a TED Fellow, and a gifted citizen. So thank you very much for joining us, Sarah Jane. Welcome to Field Trip.
Thank you so much for having me, Leah. This is brilliant. Thank you, everyone. And firstly, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to all First Nations people around the world, those listening in, and the custodians of the land in which I live and work here on the Wurundjeri or the Kulin Nation. I'd also like to pay my respects to the guardians of our oceans and our waterways. And for me, this is an opportunity to take you not so much on a field walk, but a field dive. So it is my great pleasure to start this process with a particular type of immersion that I find can only occur in an ocean setting. Since time immemorial, outer space and the ocean have been sources of both mystery and intrigue. We have had long wondered what lies beyond our planet in the stars and above, and what lies within the salty ocean waters. Today, the only operational underwater habitat and saturation laboratory is the Aquarius Reef Habitat, run by the Florida International University in the United States. This is a place I've longed to dream to inhabit as a studio space, as a point of departure for exploration into human performance and the environmental exchange that can impact the work. Let's take a look at what lies inside. This is inside the Aquarius Reef Habitat. It is currently unoccupied, but these are images from Mission 31 taken a number of years ago by Fabien Cousteau. He was I guess a private person who utilised the environment to undertake all kinds of exploration, particularly in terms of underwater cinematic technology, reflecting back on 30 or 50 years since his grandfather had begun his underwater habitat projects. All of these systems are designed, I guess, as we're in quarantine around the world, we recognize these advanced life support systems as a compression of the type of systems that we need to enable us to inhabit successfully these kinds of spaces. So we had planned an undersea habitat mission bringing together art, science and technology to live and work in this facility this year to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the Tektite 2 Mission 6 program. Between 1969 and 1970, a landmark human experiment took place in the Virgin Islands called Tektite. It was a unique government industry university collaboration with over 500 people participating. And it was the first United States seabed floor laboratory with dozens of scientists, engineers, and even artists coming on board. So 2020 marks the 50th anniversary and the momentous, well, all-female mission, which was Tektite 2 Mission 6. It was also the 51st anniversary of the Apollo landing this year and the first time that a woman has reached the full depth of the ocean. So there were all of these convergences. And while we weren't able to undertake our particular mission because of the COVID-19 restrictions, we were able to dive in to create a 2-day event to celebrate and learn from the past. The former administrator of NAUA, Professor Jane Lubchenco, introduced
how bold and daring this grand adventure was, and the extent to which it helped upend societal attitudes and expectations of women.
Basically, she's saying that in a strong male-dominated world of diving, the fine performance of these women paved the way for the inclusion of other women in undersea and space missions. And perhaps at the time, we didn't understand the significance, but we certainly do now.
How bold.
So we launched this session with a preview of an upcoming documentary by some artists and filmmakers who are looking back at Tektite Revisited, looking at what was effectively a man in the sea mission, as it was even named, and what that actually meant for women in the sea. We also, in previewing that, started to understand something of the politics of this kind of occupation.
Emphasized that the all-female mission was a resounding scientific and operational success. In fact, NASA found that Tektite's all-female crew routinely outperformed their male counterparts in nearly every category, from time spent in the water, to effective research communication, to the management of interpersonal relationships.
So it was wonderful to bring the original crew back together again, to have them meet and to discuss old stories, to reminisce, to try and get accuracy about perspectives with stories that have been held on to for the last 50 years, but also to talk about the impact, the significance, the lessons learned, and those things that we can take on into the future. We had one of the mission director who was 93 years young, and so it was fantastic to have him there. But also the original Aquanaut crew member, the 4 remaining living Aquanaut crew members who lived and worked together underwater, sharing their stories. So Sylvia Earle, Anne Hurley, Peggy Lucas Bond, and Alina Sisman became, I guess, the women that we have referred to and looked up to since they undertook this daring mission. Some of the things that came out of their lessons and their learnings was how to demystify, how to deal with and communicate the popularity of both the project, and to demystify how their gender had in fact played a role in this, but to use the platform that that had been given to them to promote the ocean and to be able to create an awareness campaign effectively that has lasted almost throughout their lives. Many of these women are still diving and undertaking work today.
Realize you have a responsibility, and that constantly aware. It's not about you, Sylvia. It's about the ocean. And when you speak, so they want to know: did you use a hairdryer? Or did you wear lipstick? Okay, get over that. Let me tell you about the ocean and what it is that we saw there.
So what they did start to speak about, and what I did start to notice throughout the project and through speaking about this, was the difference between the ocean values and the space values. The reasons why people were there, what they were doing, and what they saw the other doing. It was an us and them mentality, partly because of resources, but partly because of a convergence of transdisciplinary operational perspectives that needed to come together, but they weren't necessarily overlapping in the same time. And what I mean by that is, as an artist going into these domains, I'm often in concert with scientists, engineers, policymakers, technicians of all kinds. And I've taken for granted that I'm a researcher, a research subject, and a research technician for other people's work, and I have those conversations. But a lot of these parties are working still independently, and their value structure is still quite independent of that, even if they're contributing to interdisciplinary projects, simply by virtue of the fact that they're not coming together in a synergistic way. So one of the things we're able to do with this event was bring together actors who wouldn't normally speak with each other. And it was great to have, say, the head of the German Space Agency saying, while they have an incredible capability of space-based technology and marine and maritime technology, particularly focused on Earth and environmental management systems, she is not often invited to sit at the table about any ocean projects. And similarly, speaking to an astronaut and an aquanaut who has now become an artist, her perspective is quite interesting in that she's now using the platform similarly to the original aquanauts. She's using her platform to speak about environmental concerns, but also particularly the synergy between the spaces and the possibility for expanding perspectives within these spaces. Of course, bringing the arts with equal weighting to this conversation is immensely important. And it was an honor to be able to bring Leah Barclay, and she was able to perform and send us direct signals from the Great Barrier Reef all around the world for this historic occasion. We also invited people who work both from research to technology to filmmaking, from the BBC documentaries, Blue Planet documentaries and so on, with Rachel Scott there. And my co-host, who is Tyranny Tiss, led this particular session to expand upon this notion of fresh perspectives, where we get them, where we can create that exchange and reinforcement of this story, this narrative. And similarly, she has worked with a contemporary dance company in the United States called Capacitor, and spoke with Jodie Lemans. So both Sylvia Earle and Tyranny Tiss worked with Jodie and collaborated on a beautiful oceanic performance, which has been called the Cirque du Soleil meets the ocean type of event that described the life aquatic of the marine creatures particularly. So in speaking about habitability, we started to disrupt and introduce new perspectives. So bringing an archaeologist, a neuroscientist, a futurist architect, and a marine scientist together to talk about ocean memory, worlding, distributed memory, looking at different ways of inhabiting this planet, and in fact going beyond with artwork that looked far beyond into the cosmos. Similarly, engaging in the politics of that through art, through tactical conservation, being able to engage in a conversation of what we're seeing and not seeing, what we're doing and what we are not doing, or what in fact we should be doing. How we are building community, how we are disrupting paradigms, how we are being inclusive, how we are enabling that which hasn't been enabled, and also looking at the systems that currently exist. What exists at Aquarius? What type of operations? How can we get people together to talk about the possibilities? We also had Jessica Meir join us, who had just returned to planet Earth. She's still in her post-flight phase from 7 months at the International Space Station. She's also been an aquanaut and spent 5 trips, I think, to Antarctica, studying diving physiology of penguins. She's fascinating. And we had a keynote perspective from Dr. Jill Tata from the SETI Institute with a great final...
Is that when you get back to your devices, go in and change your profile so that the first thing that you say about yourself is that you're an earthling, and then act like it. Thank you.
So the idea of going below and beyond means being an earthling. It means expanding our horizons, and it means preparing for the sea change of the future. As we look ahead, we hope to be able to highlight the lessons learned through the technologies, the global collaborations, the diverse stories and voices that we have learned about for the next, or over those 2 days. Looking back over the next 50 years, looking at both established and emerging practitioners, women of sea and space, following in their legacy to look at new frontiers for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah Jane Pell. That was truly wonderful and so inspiring for you to be able to take us underwater during this field trip. And the Tektite event was such an incredible and ambitious piece of work. And I really encourage everyone to have a look at the website and, of course, follow the adventures as they unfold in the coming year. And I think, you know, for your work in general, you know, in Australia, when we're talking about artists who, you know, who have truly pioneered this way of thinking about the intersection between art, science, technology and environment, you know, your work is truly at the forefront of that and exemplifies everything that we're talking about today. So thank you so much for sharing your work and joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.